Who I am? Where am I? At this time, Leo had a headache and looked around, but was stunned. The room was about 10 square meters, the lighting was very dim, and the room decorated in an ancient medieval style made everything seem very strange. Hiss! The smell was so strong, the pungent herbal smell made Leo wake up a bit, trying to stand up reluctantly, but he felt a pain in his skull. Master, are you awake? At this time, strange words came from around him, but the strange thing was that Leo seemed to know what he was talking about. Looking up, a 17 or 8-year-old girl with big waves looked at herself with worry. Wait, what is this? Leo's head ached, it seemed that light and shadow kept passing by in front of him, and countless streams of information were continuously instilled in his mind. Ah! Leo only felt that his head was about to explode, but at this time the maid was also panicked, and hurriedly shouted, Master, don't worry, I'll find Uncle Vent. After all, this long-legged maid ran out in such a hurry. After a while, Leo just turned around, the cold sweat on his head was blown by the wind, and the slight coolness instantly woke him up. I passed through? Recalling the memories in his mind, Leo didn't know whether he should be happy or sad. He was born in a dilapidated small noble family in this world. His father was a little baron in the Lion Kingdom, and his fief was located in the east of the Lion Kingdom. Of a baronial. The baroniality is not large, and there are 5 knight manors under the jurisdiction. Even among the many barons, they are considered weak and have very little wealth. However, in the surrounding area, the eldest brother does not laugh at the second brother, and the same poverty, only the town of Truebrunn, which belonged to Viscount Leifric, was a relatively wealthy land. Originally, of course, he didn't need to worry about the second son of the baron. It was just that his brother died in his belly not long ago, and his father also died because of excessive grief. This time, Leo, who was just going to be a waste of food and waiting to die, suddenly became the new patriarch of the fallen Archimonde family, and will inherit Archimonde's baroniality. Good luck! Maybe the predecessor really didn't have this fate. Not long after he returned from the aristocracy, he was occupied by Leo from the 21st century. At this time, Leo didn't know how to describe his mood. Originally passed through, and everything in the previous life no longer exists, it is definitely a big blow. But, have you become a lord? For Leo, who has never even been a monitor in elementary school, can he become a master in this Pandeland? There seems to be no reason to be unhappy. Master! Suddenly, a slender figure appeared in front of Leo, with a fair complexion, a very smooth beard, and a white robe that looked very gentle. Obviously, he was also a person who likes to be clean on weekdays. This is Uncle Vint? Leo's memory emerged in his mind. This is his father's close friend and the steward of Archimonde Castle. A knight with terrifying strength. For many years. The other party has shown great strength more than once, which makes Leo remember deeply. Young master, you are too reckless, Went said at this time, with a bit of reproach and helplessness on his face. The Canton family has coveted our barondom for a long time, and the Wood heard that he was taking over as Baron Canton. Before, it used to be a fierce lion infantry, that is to say, at least the level of a 4th-order warrior. If it weren't for the accident of the Canton family later, I'm afraid they are now the heavy armored infantry of the fierce lion. Even so, after returning, he is also a qualified nobleman of the lion realm, and his strength should not be underestimated. He is eager to make contributions, and only then will Liuhung village bet against us in Heian village, although Liuhung village is richer than Heian village. Too many, but no hope of winning at all. Ah, this! After listening to Uncle Went's words, Leo still didn't come back to his senses, but then he seemed to remember something, and the original smile froze on his face, which was very bad. The former fool, when he came back from the aristocracy, met Wood, who had been planning for a long time. After a few words from the other party, his brain became hot, and he openly made a bet with wood in front of so many people in the great river city. And, just 3 days later. What else is this about? How could it be possible? Leo had a little helplessness on his face. Although everyone on the Pender continent can cultivate, the nobles who inherit the mystery have blood power in their bodies that is different from that of the commoners, which makes their future brighter. The strength of the bit is more tyrannical. Of course, although the road to aristocracy is easier, there will also be many strict nobles who will require their children to start from civilian rank and finally to aristocratic rank. Although this is more difficult, it will also make people go farther, such as Wood, the patriarch of the Canton family at this time. If the predecessor Leo is a scumbag who eats and waits to die, then Wood is a university tyrant. The gap between the two is really a sea, even if it was carefully cultivated by his father before. My elder brother, Richard, is only at the level of a quasi-knight in the fierce lion realm. The gap between them is really far away, how can he compare? The predecessor was flooded with water, right? Uncle Vint, I want to be quiet. At this time, Leo also didn't know what to do. Hey, take a good rest, Went sighed when he saw this situation. He naturally knew that Archimonde's huge burden was suddenly placed on the boy who was less than 15 years old. For him, what a pressure! Leo, but he has never been trained as a family heir, so there is nothing to complain about. Went gave the maid a wink and left the bedroom. Hey! Seeing that he was alone in the bedroom, Leo went to the wash basin beside the bed, picked up a basin of water and brushed it across his cheeks. His mind was spinning sharply. What should he do? Hey, wait, I'm a traveler, wouldn't I just let myself survive in such a dangerous world by myself? Not to mention that there will be a small village less at the beginning. What if Wood is ruthless during the battle? He wouldn't let himself be seriously injured for a few more months. That would be too useless. In the 21st century, he has never done anything with anyone. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Come here to be beaten up first? It shouldn't be. Hey, Siri. Leo was stunned for a while, but didn't respond, and then shouted, "Hello Ziona, hello Zioi, hello." After half a day, there was no response. The system is big. Leo said with a wry smile. Boom. In front of Leo's eyes, bursts of golden light suddenly shone brightly, and the golden light was dazzling, as if something shattered. The next moment, the golden mist turned into an inexplicable change and appeared in front of Leo's eyes. This. Leo opened his mouth wide involuntarily, looked at the huge panel that appeared in front of him, and wiped his eyes again. This panel is very familiar. Yes, the ancient Kijiai. I have played the game for more than 10 years, this system has not been updated to Kijiao 2? Negative ratings. Hey, who is this character template? The face value is quite attractive, Leo? Isn't this yourself? Of course, Leo didn't care about his appearance, so he looked down again. Leo, level 1, early stage 1. Attributes, Force 4 Min, 1 Wisdom, 6 Charm, 14 Awe. This data is too scary, it's scary low. As for skill points and weapon proficiency, it's simply too low to look at. Leo had a bit of surprise on his face. This former waste has become like this? A little panic. Hey, yes, there is a small line of words, energy can be exchanged for attribute points and skill points. Energy? Ah, yes, this is the key, hurry up to find energy. Leo took a deep breath, his mind was still spinning, but he didn't act. At this time, he still has the last question in his mind, what is energy? Energy, could it be? Leo pondered for a while, and suddenly saw that the word energy on the system panel seemed to be flashing with brilliance. With a move in his heart, his thoughts drifted past. Hiss! Sure enough, he saw a large piece of colorful crystals. Isn't this a beast crystal? Not much different from what he had guessed, Leo hurriedly walked out of the door. Hey, young master, why did you come out in person? Sasha, the maid on the side, was stunned when she saw it. Leo rolled his eyes as a matter of course. You go to prepare the food first, I'll be right back. After speaking, Leo ignored Sasha's thoughts and went straight upstairs. This is a 4-story castle with a sense of age. The blue-gray stone rocks are full of traces of years, but in Leo's feeling, this castle is extremely mysterious, from the precise patterns on it and the various directions. In terms of the layout of the castle, I am afraid it will cost a lot to build this ancient castle. Of course, Archimonde's ancestors were also rich, but the descendants of the descendants gradually fell down and went to the top floor. This is also a blank for Leo's memory, because this place used to be the Archimonde family. The forbidden area, and in the impression, it seems that my father also piled up a lot of treasures in it. Mom! I got rich. Leo greedily looked at the piles of beast crystals in front of him, looking a little dazed, unable to conceal the gleam of his pupils under the dim flames. It seems that although Archimonde looks a bit run down, he didn't expect that his father still saved so much money. Although it looks like they are all first and second order, and third order beast crystals are rare. System, give it to me. Leo shouted softly, a little unable to suppress his inner impulse. Maybe these beast crystals are nothing to a huge family, but for individuals, they are real wealthy. No response? Leo was a little embarrassed, but he didn't panic. He kept trying to put the pile of beast crystals on the panel with his mind, SSH. The next moment, sure enough, all the beast crystals disappeared, and the energy column also had the number of 486 written, and so on. Leo only felt a burst of heat rushing through his body, and the muscles around his body were numb, just like the spa in his previous life. Is this? Looking at the panel again, the level column has become level 15, third order perfect. Huh? Leo waved his fist in disbelief, and the sound of anger sounded. He really went from being a little who had just stepped into the first rank by virtue of his noble blood to the third rank? It's too magical, isn't it? The problem is that you haven't spent energy yet? Does this mean that it seems that collecting energy by yourself will increase the experience, but the energy can still be spent? A dual-purpose energy, awesome. Now look at the panel Leo, level 15, level 3 perfect. Attributes, Force, 19 Min, 16 Wisdom, 10 Charm, 14 Look, this is the Traverser. In the blink of an eye, the third order rise is complete, and it is only a line away from the fourth order. Even if it is my brother who has always been talented, my father spent a lot of money to cultivate it, and it is only in the middle of the third order. Of course, if my father, Izumi, knew about the treasures of several generations, and fed Leo as much as he could, whether he was happy or angry, then it would be really hard to say. Ding! The first energy collection task is completed, and the novice gift package is activated. The voice came out in his mind, which made Leo subconsciously slightly excited. The rumored novice gift package arrived? Weapon proficiency plus 400, please choose one of the host. A line of words is displayed on the panel. Leo frowned slightly. At this time, he noticed an embarrassing thing. His weapon proficiency seemed to be terribly low. The highest one-handed weapon proficiency was 9. While leveling up, your weapon proficiency has not increased. Well, Leo had to accept the sad fact that he should be the weakest third-order consummation. Then which one is better? Leo couldn't help frowning. But immediately, there was a bit of a smile on the corner of his mouth. It must be a two-handed weapon. How powerful is that thing? Do you see the former Lin Lei, who swept the 4 directions with the great sword? Did you not see the former Yanguo? A black iron heavy sword dominates the world. Leo also wanted to live the life he lived. After a while, his two-handed weapon proficiency, 408. It seems that there are countless shadows in his mind, and his arm also has an inexplicable memory. Is that? The next moment, Leo saw that there seemed to be rows of tombstones in front of him. Before, his eyes were attracted by the beast crystals, but now he realized the spiritual positions of the ancestors in this row, and he felt a little unfilial. This is the tombstone of your Archimonde ancestors, Uncle Vent didn't know when he had come behind him, which also made Leo feel a little shocked. Now, he has already completed the third order consummation. But he still didn't notice the arrival of Uncle Vint at all. It seems that Uncle Vint is more terrifying than he thought. But what shocked Leo even more was that before he collected the beast crystals, was Uncle Vent discovered that he was sloppy. But fortunately, Uncle Vent looked like this, he should have just arrived, and said straightly, "The Archimonde family, it is said that they came from another continent named Norland, just because of an inexplicable change. They left their hometown and came here. Got here. It is said that in your bloodline, there is the inheritance of demons, and the glory of blood and fire is incomparably brilliant. When you first came to the Pender continent, it was almost the most popular family at the time. It is a pity that the generation of your great ancestors was very important. Following the mistakes of the former ancestors, falling in love with the creatures that should not be loved, and finally the great Archimonde family is inferior to the next generation. At the last natural disaster, just followed the Duke of the Lion to establish the Kingdom of the Lion, but the fief was only such a small piece." Uncle Went shook his head softly, with an inexplicable meaning in his eyes. Ah! Leo couldn't help but be stunned for a while, but also seemed a little unbelievable. In his impression, this dilapidated castle seemed very ordinary. Didn't he expect that it would have such a glorious past? "I was wrong before, I didn't expect you to have such a strong strength. Archimonde's bloodline is really extraordinary." Uncle Went showed a bit of relief at this time. "I want to come. If it wasn't for an accident, your elder brother's position in the future might not be so secure." "Ah?" Listening to Went's words at this time, Leo didn't know how to reply. Obviously the other party saw his strength, but this guess was a bit deviated, but this is good, it can make Uncle Went feel more at ease. It is. The next moment, Leo suddenly thought, can he see the strength of Uncle Went? Your own system shouldn't be difficult, right? Ding! The eye of insight is opened, the system's voice sounded in his mind, making Leo excited for a while. Sure enough, the level of the system is still quite high. The Eye of Insight consumes 10 energy, and can detect the opponent's attribute panel. Note, the level difference must not exceed 20. The successive voices made Leo more and more eager to try. Click Enable. Only. Uncle Went in front of him is still Uncle Went. There is no change. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. Leo's expression froze slightly. Could it be that there is a bug in this system? Or? The next moment, 3 huge question marks slowly passed from the top of Uncle Vint's head. Oh, isn't it? Thinking of the small line of words in the comment, I am now level 15, doesn't that mean that Uncle Vint is at least level 35? That is at least a 7th order powerhouse, and it may even be higher. Leo's heart seemed to be tightened, and he swallowed hard. He guessed that Uncle Went was very powerful, but he didn't expect it to be so terrifying anyway. Master, Went stretched out his hand to the huge two-handed great sword that came to the center of the room. This is the Hellfire War Sword. The former Archimonde left a small number of divine soldiers, but it may have been dusty. In future duels, although it will be difficult for you to rely on its divine might, it will never be inferior to other swords. Leo took over the giant sword, only to feel his hand sink, and then he seemed to want to hold it with both hands and smash everything in front of him. This feeling? It should be the reason for the sudden increase in his two-handed weapon proficiency. He immediately looked at Uncle Vint and said, Don't worry, Uncle Vint, I will definitely not let Wood's conspiracy succeed. Well, Uncle Vint showed a slight smile on the corner of his mouth. I can take you around the world even at the worst, as long as you can give up this human life, but I think it's very difficult. Okay? Leo blinked and seemed to feel that he realized something, but immediately, he was occupied by the news of the duel 3 days later. He had just been promoted to Baron. This was his first battle. If he really wanted to lose a village, what would happen? System? Okay, get ready. Uncle Went's voice seemed to be somewhat relaxed, obviously because he was delighted by the sudden discovery of Leo's strength. Hey, ha! The black and red giant sword was crushed like a thunderbolt, and the huge boulder was divided into 2.5. The next moment Leo's body and arms were twisting at an incredible angle. The huge giant sword was hidden in his hands. Of danger! Click! A giant tree was directly broken, and with the giant sword in Leo's hand swirling, it was broken into 4 pieces in an instant. That's right, Uncle Went, who was on the side, walked over and said, a two-handed sword like you, even the elites in the entire fierce lion realm, can surpass you very little. If the rank can be higher, there will be no risk in this competition. Leo smiled without saying a word. He still has more than 400 energy. If all of it is added to the weapon proficiency, I don't know what the situation will be. Of course, doing that is too extreme. However, your strength seems to be a little wrong. Although you are only a 3rd order consummation now, your strength is not inferior to a 4th order master. As expected of Uncle Went, he had an insight into his own strength problem at a glance, but it was more than that. Strength, consuming 170 energy points, he successfully upgraded his attributes to an incomparably luxurious level. Leo, level 14, level 3 perfect. Force, 19 min, 19 wisdom, 19 charm, 19. After adding it here, it has reached the limit, and even the plus sign at the back has turned grey, which also makes Leo understand that it is estimated that it is limited by the rank and cannot continue to improve. Take another look at himself. The weapon proficiency of 408, I practiced sweating for a day, and the situation is still the same. Well, freezing 3 feet is not a day's cold, and I will gradually improve it in the future. Uncle Went, how is the garrison strength in our territory now? Leo thought of something again. Although Uncle Went is a top-notch expert, the combination of memory and Uncle Went's words seems to be inconvenient for the other party. Shot? Maybe something unspeakable? Furthermore, the high-end combat power is sufficient, and the basic combat power must also keep up. The situation is not very good. Hearing this, Uncle Went was also slightly depressed and shook his head. 30 years ago, your father had an accident, and then he has been drinking alcohol to relieve his worries and no fighting spirit, and the family territory is also inattentive. It is precisely because of this that Wood is so concerned about your home's territory. Not to mention the 4 knights raised by your father. Now the Baron Castle has a 13-member guard, and the Langzia village where the castle is located has a 26-member militia. Iwamura also has a militia team of more than 20 people each, but your father hasn't paid attention to them for a long time, maybe. Leo nodded slightly, and understood what Uncle Went meant. Obviously, the 3 villages have been stalking for too long, but now is not the time to rush into these matters. He turned to the maid Sasha and said, you go and call Captain Carey. Captain Carey, the captain of the castle guard, is a middle-aged and strong man in his early 40s. His muscles are tall and bulging. He is usually unsmiling, but he is loyal to the Archimond family. Lord Baron, Callie, a big man with a beard and an awe-inspiring face, dressed in battle armor handed down from his ancestors, saluted Leo respectfully. Eye of Insight, Carey, level 15, 3rd order perfect, force 13 min, 11 wisdom, 6 charm, 6 hay. Obviously, Captain Kari's cultivation was also unexpected to Leo's. The opponent's cultivation was higher than he imagined, and he had almost reached the peak among the elite militiamen of the Lion Realm. Captain Carey, I want to know, how is the garrison of the castle now? Leo stared at Captain Carey in front of him with a stern face, and he also undisguised the 3rd order consummation of Chi. Hiss! Captain Carey could not help but let out a cold sigh. When did this former second young master, a young man who was almost helpless, have such a terrifying cultivation? Although the chi displayed by the other party is the same as the third-order consummation, the strength of the other party is obviously higher than his own. Is it difficult? For a while, Captain Carey also automatically made up a lot of things. Looking at Leo in front of him, he became more solemn. After Wei Wei thought about it, he replied loudly, "Master Hui, Archimond Castle Guard, there are a total of 13 people, except for the subordinates. Among them, there are 3 people with the fighting rank of the elite militia of the Fierce Lion realm, all of them are in the early stage of the 3rd rank, and there are 9 people with the fighting rank of the militia of the Fierce Lion realm, all of which are of the 2nd rank level. At this level, it is quite satisfactory. Captain Carey, if I want to expand the size of the team now, how many people can you recruit today?" Leo frowned slightly and asked again. Hearing this, Captain Carey's eyes flashed with joy. The old Baron was decadent before, making his skills useless. I didn't expect that this Baron, who was in a hurry, seemed to have other ambitions. That's right, otherwise, how could he have cultivated such a terrifying strength under the eyes of everyone? Lord Baron, before sunset today, at least 2 early 3rd-order militiamen and 8 ordinary 2nd-order militiamen can be recruited. Captain Carey said arrogantly, but the next moment his voice was a little quieter, but this a minimum of 114 dinars is required, as well as a weekly wage of at least 16 dinars. It seemed that Captain Carey also knew a lot about the nearby armed forces, which made Leo Gao glance at him. So expensive. Leo was a little cautious subconsciously. The dinar of Pender world is a double standard system of gold and silver. The dinars mentioned on weekdays are also silver dinars. According to the regulations of the war rank, in general, an elite militiaman in the Fierce Lion realm requires at least 17 dinars to join the army. Captain Carey did not fool himself. Okay, Leo nodded, you can recruit with confidence. I will grant you a quota of 300 dinars. The more people you recruit, the better. Before tonight, you must call everyone to the front of the castle, this Baron. You have to teach yourself. Now I don't care if there will be any problems here, the number of people must be accumulated first. Looking at the system panel again, the wealth is 2,454 dinars, which may be called a fortune, but it is the dinars that have been saved by several generations. In this year, the noble family has no surplus food. As ordered. Captain Carey was also very excited when he heard Leo's great handwriting. Leo waved his hand, and then waved his huge sword again, but his mind was already drifting away. He has already noticed that his troop column seems to be able to be opened, and the leader is Captain Carey. There are also 12 castle guards, but the ones displayed are 3 elite militiamen of the Fierce Lion realm and 9 militiamen of the Fierce Lion realm. It seems that this system panel is not rigid. These belong to their own forces, although they have not seen them before. I passed by, but it was already listed in the troop panel. Maybe it was because I met Captain Carey, but there were a few people. Long way to go. But what made Leo secretly happy was the plus sign behind those people. This means that his team seems to be able to upgrade. At sunset, Leo wiped the sweat from his body, took a shower, changed into a red long coat, and put on his father's old battle armor. Accompanied by Uncle Vent and Captain Carey, he walked to the front of the castle. "See your lord." The man in his 20s, when he saw Leo, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, naturally bowed and saluted. "Uncle Carey, you've done a good job." Leo was very satisfied when he saw the guards. It seems that Carey's talent in this area is still good, and he turned to the crowd and said, "I think you all know it. I am Leo Archimond, the new Baron Archimond, your lord. From today onwards, you will fight for me, adhering to the glory of the great Lord God Alvia, you will become powerful warriors in the shortest possible time." Alvia, who can be called the mane of the lion realm, has an extremely lofty position in the Lion Kingdom. Of course, in the center of the mainland, the religious beliefs of the Lion realm are quite free, and the gods can be in the center of Pender. Enjoy the offering. Now, if you want to riot quickly, you can only push all this on the head of the main Alvia, and then you can weaken the eyes of the world. As for the gods? Now, under the guise of the gods, the team will grow up later, train a few more political commissars, do a good job in the soldiers' hearts, and weaken the so-called Alvia. Furthermore, I know that Captain Carey has already given you the settlement fee, but it's not enough. In the fight for Archimonde, this Baron will not treat him badly. From now on, everyone's salary will be doubled. Fight for Archimonde, fight for Alvia. Under the leadership of people with a heart, many guards shouted, the salary is real, and if you want to quickly build up morale, giving money is never a wrong choice. Gradually, the guards realized that the power in their bodies was constantly surging. Originally they thought it was the reason for their emotional agitation, but soon they found that the power was really skyrocketing. Ah! I've broken through to Tier 4. Captain Carey over there. A sudden shout caught the attention of many guards, but before the voice fell, he heard a burst of exclamation again, and 2 guards broke through. Early Stage 3. At this point, everyone was shocked to realize that all this was just a moment of ignorance in their minds. Although they worshipped the gods before, there had never been such an immediate change, and for a while, they fell into a carnival again. Today, Uncle Carey, how is the situation now? Leo asked with a little bit of anticipation. Lord, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Subordinates have successfully broken through the 4th rank last night. Because of the equipment left by my father, they have directly become the Lion Infantry. Carey said very excitedly. In addition, there are 5 other people. In the early stage of breaking through the 3rd order, 4 of them were in the original guard. Well, everything is under my control. Leo couldn't help but chuckle a little. He naturally had to take care of the guards who had served him for so long. As for that person, he knew the bottom line in Langzia village, and it was his duty. There are still some stocks in the castle. You go to get 5 elite militia armors and blades, and distribute them to those 5 people, so that they can become the elite militiamen of the fierce lion realm in the shortest time. Leo said directly, the battle position must be only with qualified armor and weapons can you be promoted. By the way, apart from these 5 people, the old guards were given 8 dinars each, and the newcomers were given 6 dinars each, saying that this is the reward of this baron. Leo thought of something and asked again. Don't suffer from widowhood but disproportionately, those 5 people got a big advantage, don't let others have any more thoughts. Well, Uncle Carey, you have worked hard for my Archimonde family for half your life, and you also have 30 dinars. You. Sir, be kind. Nakari naturally thanked him with great joy. I want to have 10 elite militiamen tomorrow. You choose 8 people and go to the appointment with me tomorrow. Remember that the 2 elite militiamen left behind must be the old guards. Leo asked again, the new guards, after all, it is not as reassuring as the old guard. Your subordinates obey, you can rest assured, your subordinates will sacrifice their lives to protect you. Carey said arrogantly, and then he left. Looking at the team panel again, there are 10 elite militiamen in the Lion's realm and 12 militiamen in the fierce Lion realm. Very good, looks like a strong soldier. In the early morning of the next day, Leo changed into a bright red robe, a bright red leather jacket, a large round cake headdress, and shiny boots. Surrounded by it, he headed for Liuhung village mightily. Along the way, it was quite calm. The 8 elite militiamen of the fierce Lion realm wore warrior hats and covered leather inlaid chain mail. The sharp spear is not easy to mess with at first glance. Not to mention, Captain Carey in the front, the real Lion realm infantry, such a small team, even if they encounter a bandit with more than 10 people, I am afraid that it will be enough to kill them in an instant. When the sun was up, he slowly arrived at Liuhung village, which bordered the Canton family. At this time, the huge village had simply repaired the road, and there were many nobles' carriages and horses. Obviously, many people came here to watch the battle. After all, the bet is on a village, and the territory is related to the strength of the lord. The stake is really not light. The nobles in the nearby town of Truebrunn, who are idle, are naturally willing to come and have a look. Wood, of course, is a better thing. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he was able to enhance his reputation as Wood Canton to a greater extent. Tell me, what did the kid from the Archimond family think? Could it be that he really wants to compete with Nawood? Said a pot-bellied nobleman, looking very surprised. That's right, Asaf, you and Wood have both played in the Great River City. What level is he? Another middle-aged baron said, they don't have too many secrets between them in such a big place. The fourth rank is for sure. Asaf is a middle-aged man with blonde hair. He is strong and powerful, and he can always give people a strong sense of oppression. He didn't intend to hide it from Wood when he heard the question. Before he left the Great River City, I discussed with him, at least he has the strength of the middle stage of the fourth rank, and now it is of course the level of a glorious noble in the fierce lion realm. As for the specific cultivation base, I am not very clear. Anyway, it's impossible to reach the level of a great knight's squire, another noble said with a smile. Noble rank is honorable noble at the fourth rank, but until the seventh rank, it will be a new level, called the great noble. Knight squire, the level of this combat position, the combat level far exceeds the civilian combat position of the same rank. What about the kid from the Archimond family? The middle-aged baron who spoke earlier asked curiously. I heard that he is a kid who has never killed a chicken. Asaf's mouth showed a little chuckle. I really don't know why he agreed to talk to the boy of the Wood family. Hey, he's here. At this time, everyone's eyes also turned to the team that was slowly approaching the center of the village. 8 elite militiamen from the Lion Realm? Good guy, when did Archimond's family have so many guards? There are also the fierce Lion Realm infantry. Points of surprise. Right now, the war is slowing down a bit, and it can be regarded as peaceful. Naturally, many lords will not raise a large number of troops for salaries. I'll be darling, is it possible that this little Leo doesn't need someone to watch the house? Some nobles were also a little puzzled. He won't bring all the castle guards out, will he? Even so, it's a bit scary. The 8 elite militiamen of the fierce lion realm were brought out. Does he want to demonstrate? The pot-bellied aristocrat frowned slightly, and a few thoughts flashed on his face. Leo, the level of the guards around him is a bit too high. When he came out this time, he only brought 4 elite militiamen and 4 ordinary militiamen, so he felt that his limelight had been robbed. Many nobles also looked sideways, not to mention the elite militiamen of the fierce lion realm. There is also a fierce lion realm infantry. This strength is really unusual. It seemed that he had underestimated the Archimond family before. Brother Leo, long time no see. At this time, a burly man with a gloomy complexion walked out, facing Leo who had just dismounted, and said without a smile. Brother Wood, but you want to kill me. Leo also replied with a smile. Both of them laughed, as if they were close friends. Good brother, you are not trying to send me to the Red Village. Is it? I have just been made a baron, and you send such a gift, it really makes my brother unable to repay. Haha. There was a bit of sarcasm on the corner of Wood's mouth, but he still didn't change his smile. My dear brother, I gave this gift, whether you can accept it or not depends on your ability. If you can't take it, I'm sorry. Brother is willing to send, how can I not take it? Leo also said with a slight smile, we are here. Looking down, the square is very large, with a boundary of more than 100 square meters, enough for the two of them to duel. There are no arenas in the city here, so let's make do with it, Wood said with a sigh. Brother, you went to the Great River City last time, and you were in a hurry. If you go next time, I will show you those things. The style of the city. If there is a next time, I will bother Brother Wood more, Leo sneered. Brother Wood should give the gift now. Very good. Wood took a slight breath, turned to face the pot-bellied nobleman, and said, Uncle Roth, you are the most prestigious nobleman in our neighborhood, and everyone agrees with you. I wonder if you are willing to be our referee. Ha ha. The pot-bellied, rich-faced Roth also laughed and stepped forward rather reservedly. Little Leo, this is a duel between the two of you, what do you mean? Uncle Roth is highly respected, and if he is willing to bear witness for us, it would be great. Leo also knew that many of the nobles in this place were all human, and it was impossible for them all to turn to Wood. Of course Wood also knew this. Just choose a Roth who has high prestige and is unwilling to cause trouble. In this way, Leo's level can be considered better. Anyway, he is sure to win. Over there, Wood was already wearing a military uniform, a red padded breastplate and chain armor leggings, and a noble cross sword in his hand looked majestic, and Leo also took off his red robe, revealing a full-body leather armor. The Hellfire heavy sword weighing 600 caddies is even more terrifying. That sword? A two-handed giant sword? It may be a sharp weapon on the battlefield, but would it be too cumbersome for a duel? Asaf frowned slightly and said, he was very keenly aware of Wood's hand that heavy sword seems to be of amazing quality. However, at this time, Wood was already secretive in his heart. This kid is hiding so deep. He really deceived his eyes in the great river city before, but he didn't realize that the other party has such strength. But fortunately, when I feel this breath, it is only the third order consummation, and I am almost at the late fourth order stage. This kid is so young and has extraordinary talent. It seems that he will have to find a way to curb it in the future. Of course, this battle still has to be won in an upright manner. So many nobles are here to witness that at most he severely injured the opponent, but he must not make a bad move, otherwise the loss will outweigh the loss and break everyone's rules. A simple duel etiquette, the two sides still have the feeling of being a good brother, but the next moment, the murderous intent escaped. Wood bends slightly, his steps are very steady, he advances and retreats, and he tries a little between pacing. Half of his body is covered by a shield, his eyes are exposed, and his right-hand sword is always ready to stab, not because of the opponent's cultivation. He is low and has half a point of contempt. The stakes in this duel cannot allow him to have a half-point underestimate the enemy. At this time, Leo was also a little nervous. He didn't have much experience in dueling. At this time, seeing Wood who was waiting for him, he felt even more headache. But the next moment, seeing that Wood finally couldn't hold back his temper, he tentatively slashed, swiftly and accurately, stabbed Leo directly under the cover of the half-length shield. Hiss! How often has Leo seen this situation? Even if he has the strength, he has no combat experience. He had never encountered such an opponent in his previous practice. He was almost shocked for a moment, but his body had already reacted instinctively. Snapped! Almost instinctively, he swung the Hellfire épée, and at this moment, he skillfully swung the sword to the left to split the sword. Taking advantage of the situation, his muscle memory reversed, and he slid down with strength. Not good. Wood was frightened and hurriedly used a shield to block it. He didn't expect that Leo's reaction would be so fast. When his strength was almost at a peak, the opponent just hit a key node. His handguard sword was stronger than the opponent's épée. What's more, after Leo made a hand, he slashed the body of his sword. This time, the body he took him was slightly tilted, and Leo's two-handed sword seemed to be terrifying at a high level. After slashing the body of his sword, it came with the trend, and it was another terrible blow. Fortunately, the left hand held the shield, raised the large shield, and took the blow. Boom! Wood only felt the left and right tremors, the terrifying giant force, constantly slaughtering. This time, he could only shrink behind the shield, and he did not dare to spread the attack at all, otherwise he was really worried that he would not be able to hold the shield and stab it. A-level sword. How can that be? At this time, Wood's heart was already shocked. The many nobles who watched the battle while Yu was reading www.yuyuganshu.com were even more stunned. They had already heard of Wood's name, how could they be so embarrassed? This Liu is not simple. Although his cultivation base is only the third-order perfection, his strength is terrifyingly strong, not inferior to Wood at all, and the use of this great sword is even more terrifying. It seems that he has been practicing for decades. Like a giant's sword, the strength that was already terrifying has become even more terrifying with the giant's sword, completely pressing and beating Wood. Asef said calmly on the side, it seems that we all underestimate this Archimonde family. Boy! At this time, Liu was extremely happy. Before practicing swordsmanship by himself, he was completely unable to get the idea. Although his proficiency was there, it was far worse than a living target at this time. Sword-style beheading down, Wood's strength, but only the power of parry, no power to fight back. In order to be safe, Wood used both sword and shield, but he never thought that Liu's strength was so terrible. He was weak in output and could only rely on the giant shield to protect himself, hoping for Liu's flaws, but he never thought that the opponent's sword moved so dense, as if the épée had no pressure in the opponent's hand. He only felt that as long as he removed the shield and handed out the sword move, he would hit the sword directly. Wood is already half-hearted. He relies on his shield to carry it all. He still has a great sense of difficulty. Under the frantic blow, he felt as if he couldn't hold it anymore. At this time, his heart was almost roaring, how did this kid do it? Obviously, his cultivation base is a bit worse than him, but his combat power is so tyrannical, that terrifying sword move speed coupled with astonishing strength is simply despairing. P.S. Ask for comments, ask for recommendation votes for care. The popularity of the new book is sluggish. I hope book lovers can take care of this book and grow smoothly. At this time, many nobles couldn't help but gulp secretly. They could feel that Wood's despair at this time, even if they were in this situation, there was absolutely no way to do it. Click. A strange voice sounded, different from the previous sound of sword and shield clashing, but a faint sound of wood breaking. No way? Many nobles changed slightly, and Wood's complexion changed dramatically. He knew that it was the sound of cracks appearing in his kite-shaped shield. This Liu's attack had reached such a terrifying level. For a while, Wood's scalp felt numb, and he knew that if he kept going like this, his kite-shaped shield would soon be completely shattered. Kaka, kaka, it was another 2 heavy sword blows, which smashed into the giant shield in an instant. At this time, Wood was already extremely terrified. He didn't know why Liu had such a terrible kendo level. Fei, such an épée is still like an arm. Kaka. Another particularly violent sound, Wood threw it ruthlessly. After a long battle, he naturally knew that the kite-shaped shield was completely shattered, but this throw naturally didn't have much effect. Kill! Liu roared, the huge hellfire heavy sword slashed again, cross-cut. The extremely simple cross-cut, at this time in Liu's hand, seemed to have evolved something different, slap-cha. The kite-shaped shield that ran out instantly shattered, and Liu stepped forward again and chopped it down. Clang! The sound of the clashing of gold and iron was particularly harsh, but Wood struggled to block with his long sword, and the huge guard sword resisted, but the next moment, the whole person was directly slashed by the huge sword to several meters. When Liu saw this scene, he was also very excited, cut by the wind. Heaven and earth! I admit defeat. Wood, who saw this scene, naturally shouted. He had already sensed the danger of death, and tried his best to roll to the side. At the same time, he shouted, he knew that he had lost completely. But Liu's eyes turned slightly cold, and the blade shifted slightly, slashing towards the opponent's lower body. This! Wood was shocked, this Liu clearly wanted to abolish himself. He didn't dare to let himself die on the spot, but abolishing his legs, although there was some turmoil, didn't get in the way. No! Wood roared, almost trying his best to shrink. Boom! After all, he had rolled on the battlefield. Wood tried his best to avoid this terrifying blow. He rolled and climbed, and the ground shook violently. The already huge sword pit was revealed. Many nobles saw this scene. Shocked. Pity. Seeing that Wood was not damaged, although Leo felt a pity in his heart, he couldn't break the rules in the eyes of the public, so he had to withdraw his sword and said, "Sorry Brother Wood, I almost forfeited my hand." Wood gasped violently and touched it. Fortunately, he was still there. He was in cold sweat, and he was almost unable to stand up. He barely stood up. "I spent the rest of my life in a wheelchair. At that time, the Canton family will inevitably lose their hearts and minds, and this is too terrifying. No, go back and get married and have children." This is what Wood thought at this time, but immediately, he felt a chill in his heart again. This battle, he lost, Liuheng village lost. This means that his prestige in the Canton family will decline, and it will be a great blow to the entire Canton Baron. "It seems that I can still afford this gift." Leo walked up with a smile. "Brother Wood, keep your word." Wood's face turned blue, he clenched his fists tightly, his eyes were almost bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth. "Brother Leo, you're welcome. I'll evacuate people today. This Liuheng village will be Archimonde's territory in the future. Leo Archimonde wins." Then Baron Roth announced the result in perfect harmony. Seeing that Wood was so angry at this time, Leo was no longer excited, nodded slightly, and then said to the many nobles, "I have you to watch the battle. Today Liuheng village is busy. I'm afraid it's Leo. If you are willing to do it again, Leo will entertain you with all his heart." "What's the matter, nephew Leo? When you first won this Liuheng village, it was the time to show off your achievements. Naturally, we will not hinder you, and you can visit us when you have time." The nobles were also very discerning. Said, they knew that a new generation of rising stars was born in the nearby nobles. He is young, energetic, ambitious, and his future is almost limitless. Wood was abiding by the agreement, and quickly withdrew his own people, or he would not do it if he didn't, unless he wanted to be discredited in the aristocratic circle. But this time, "We are the citizens of Canton territory, we don't know what Archimonde family is, get out." Leo could naturally hear the shouts from outside, and he stopped when he was about to get on his horse. "You haven't come to the door yet, so don't someone make a fuss?" Leo's eyes flashed a little bit of coldness, and he walked straight over. The 8 elite militiamen accompanying him were also full of energy, and the leader Carey in the front was even slightly bent and stretched, and the military sword in his hand seemed to be out in the next moment. "Sheath beheaded troublemaker. This is..." There were already dozens of people coming, all peasants wearing linen vests or coarse cloth clothes, all with sallow complexions, kitchen knives or pitchforks in their hands, forcing their courage and looking at Lee tremblingly. "OETL. That's it." Seeing this scene, the guards around Leo couldn't help but chuckle a little. Even if the number of opponents was several times theirs, if they really wanted to fight, one wave would be enough to make the opponent collapse. "You are the villagers in this village." Looking at the crowd, Zhang Sheng walked over slowly and said loudly. "Yes," a tall man shouted, "we are the subjects of the Baron of Canton, we don't know you Archimonde. Hurry up." Leo frowned slightly, and Captain Carey, who was on the side, strode straight up, aggressively, and headed straight for the man. "Don't come here." Seeing this scene, the man panicked. Looking at Captain Carey, who was a head older than him, fully armed, he was even more frightened. Clang clang. There is no suspense, the fourth order Captain Carey, with a shield strike, directly hit the kitchen knife and the man holding the kitchen knife. The next moment, the man flew out without any resistance, rolled a few times after landing, and looked at Captain Carey in front of him in disbelief. Captain Carey stepped forward immediately, and kicked the man's stomach hard. The man almost bowed up, his face twisted to the extreme. It was obviously painful. The next moment, Captain Carey spat in disdain. He took a sip and walked back with the man's collar. "Very good," Leo nodded, and then said to the crowd, "Do you all mean this?" "No, no, my lord, we are not." Everyone trembled in fear, but an old man with a white beard from 60 years old walked up tremblingly, bowed and saluted, "Sir, I am Lu, the village chief of Hong village. We Liu Hung village, are your subjects from today." Well, Leo's indifference was still clearly visible, pointing to the man who was almost paralyzed into mud. "Is this person from your village? Who is his family?" "My lord, it is clear that this Hess is a rogue in our village, an orphan. He usually idles around and harms the village, but now he thinks that he is bewitched," the village chief said in a trembling voice. "An orphan? Very good." There was a slight smile on the corner of Leo's mouth. "This baron knows that you used to belong to the Canton territory, and the Canton territory may be good to you, but your Baron Canton has already lost Liuhung village to me, so you only need to understand one thing now, and that is from today, this is the domain of the Archimond family. This baron has always been kind. I heard that the Canton family's taxes were not light before. This baron hereby announces that from today, the taxes in Liuhung village will be reduced by 30%. What? Is there such a good thing?" Many villagers have been whispering to each other, seeming particularly surprised, and even a little bit in disbelief, but with this order, the hostile emotions before have become weaker and weaker. "Sir, be merciful!" the village chief shouted with excitement. How could they, the villagers living at the bottom, be so loyal to the Canton family? Liuhung village is not a canton. The central village of Dunling. As for this Hess, Leo changed the conversation, got on his horse, walked to Naosa's side with a majesty, and said loudly, "My Archimond family ancestors followed the great lion King Alfred to establish after entering the kingdom of Fierce Lion Realm. The Archimond family has been a nobleman of Fierce Lion Realm since then, serving on the silver throne. Hess humiliated the nobles and humiliated my Archimond's reputation. As Archimond's contemporary patriarch, he beheaded him under his horse. Do you have any objections?" "What?" Many villagers couldn't help but be startled. Hess over there had just been thrown to the ground by Captain Carey. Hearing what Leo said, he hurriedly fled. The next moment, Leo threw it lightly, a huge hell. The fire épée flew away in an instant. Shoo! Ah! With the screams of Hess, the huge hellfire heavy sword had already nailed him to the ground. Ho ho! Hess kept twisting, but the blood had already flowed out. After the number of breaths, there is no life. Hiss! All the villagers felt their scalps go numb. Seeing Hess' tragic state, they became more and more frightened. "My lord, I have seen Hess humiliate my lord with my own eyes. It's really good." The village chief also swallowed and replied tremblingly, "Your lord did a good job." Damn Hess! Numerous villagers agreed, no longer as imposing as before. "Well, very good," Leo nodded lightly. It was quite useful to give a stick to a sweet jujube. The Archimond family does not have a high prestige here, so it can only be like this. The village chief said, "I hope you can keep your word in Liuhung village, don't make any mistakes, or Hess will definitely not be the first." "Don't worry, my lord, I will definitely work for Archimond in Liuhung village, and I will never dare to have second thoughts," the village chief replied hurriedly, becoming more and more in awe. Leo nodded, and immediately noticed a small team watching not far away. "P.S. Please take care of the new book, ask for the recommendation ticket and ask for comments. The update is currently updated once a day, and after signing the contract, it will be updated twice a day. You guys," Leo beckoned slightly while sitting on the horse. The team watching in the distance was a little restless when they saw this scene. The man in the white and green burqa and headscarf at the head was also stunned for a moment, and then trotted away. "Come over." "Good day, Lord Baron." The man's face was rough and he felt a bit weather-beaten. "Akel greets you." Akel, level 11, early stage 2. Strength, 9 agility, 14 intelligence, 11 charisma, 12. Of course, what shocked Leo Indiana particular was that among the skills of the opponent, the trade was as high as 60, full 100. This is the one with the highest trading skills among all the people Zhongsheng has met. He glanced at the other party's team from a distance. Most of them wore carriages. Many carriages were wrapped in white cloth, and they all looked like they were in the dust. "Are you a caravan?" Leo almost understood the other party's origins. "Go back to Lord Baron, we are indeed a caravan. Since the great river city, we have passed through the small towns of Ermenide and Trubrun all the way to this Liuheng village. I am fortunate to see the adults show their might." Speaking humbly, Leo couldn't help but glanced at each other slightly, and then looked at the group of caravan guards. All of them were also of extraordinary strength. As far as strength is concerned, the guards of the previous Archimond castle may not be as strong as the other party. After all, the caravan has a lot of roads and must carry goods of amazing value. If you don't have a few brushes, you are simply marrying others. Clothes. Of course, nobles are still nobles. Don't look at the fact that these rural nobles don't have such terrible strength. That's because it's a time of peace. Naturally, there is no need to keep too many troops. In wartime, their appeal is stronger than these businessmen. Too many, and a small army can explode in minutes. Besides, even a rich businessman can't be rude when facing nobles. This Akel is also very clever, and he is almost respectful when facing Leo. "Who is behind you?" Leo squinted slightly and looked at Akel in front of him. He was a little curious. Many caravans also have shadows of nobles behind them, or they were formed by a noble. In the words of your lord, Akel is the caravan that succeeded his father, and he has never worked for any noble. Akel replied, secretly thinking that the young baron seemed too direct. "Okay?" Leo's heart moved slightly. "Have you completed the transaction of all the goods in your car?" "Naturally not. Every time our caravan goes, we sell some of the goods, and then replenish some of the goods. Of course, we never sell all of them." Akel said wonderingly, "This should be a well-known thing." Cough cough. Leo seemed a little embarrassed, so he took it for granted. Then Akel, "I took a fancy to your shipment, but it came out in a hurry and didn't bring many dinars. You follow me to Langzia village, how much the shipment should be, I will give you a lot of points." "You?" Leo said. "Ah." Hearing this, Akel was also stunned. It stands to reason that nobles will definitely carry some dinars when they go out. Why do they have to go to the other party's Langzia village? However, Langzia village was not far from his business route, and Akel happily agreed. Along the way, it seemed quite relaxed, almost feeling like traveling in the mountains and waters. After all, when I came, there was still the pressure of a duel, but before the return trip, I won the duel, and I was in a good mood. Naturally, it was not a feeling. There are a lot of refugees along the way. Looking at the homeless people who appeared on both sides from time to time, Zhongsheng frowned slightly and said with a bit of thought. "It seems that the current environment is not good, otherwise the refugees will not be so exaggerated." "It's okay," Akel felt accustomed to it. "Now our Lion Kingdom has not gone to war with a few major countries, and everyone is living a good life, but there were famines in the past few years, and many places were grainless. If we accept it, there will be a lot more refugees." Leo called Captain Carey and whispered in the ear of the other party, and then only saw Captain Carey walking to the refugees and shouting, "Listen, all refugees, great Leo Archimond Lord Day, I will give you a way to survive in Langzia village. If you want to survive, go to the baronial territory." "What?" Hearing this, the group of refugees also looked surprised, and they looked very unbelievable. In this era, These refugees are so annoying, how could there be nobles willing to take them in? Of course, after Captain Carey shouted, he didn't explain it any further. He was too eager, which would easily make them suspicious. Besides, these refugees, if they had a chance, would go for it. Lord Baron is interested in these refugees. Akel said curiously. He did not expect that Leo would pay attention to these refugees who were tired of many nobles. It's okay, Leo nodded lightly and didn't say much. Instead, he asked, Akel, can your caravan get slaves? That's natural. If you want, Lord Baron, I can bring you a batch of them. An ordinary strong slave only needs 1 dinar, which is good and cheap. Akel said with a smile, this is meager and small of course, he doesn't look at profit, but he still likes to befriend a nobleman. Very good. Leo nodded. The two were chatting, but they had vaguely seen the appearance of Langzia village. Before leaving, Leo asked Uncle Venter to build the village and expand the area. At this time, it was already vaguely saw the busy people. Lord Baron. A former castle guard was carrying lumber, and when he saw the return of the team, he recognized Leo and shouted happily, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. It's really the Baron that has returned. Why are there so many people? Many people also whispered, and then waited until Leo approached and saluted respectfully. Naturally, at their level, they wouldn't know about Leo's gambling fight with Wood. They just thought that this time Lord Baron was just going out to play, even though he had a lot of guards. Akel, Langzia village also has some specialties. You can think about it. You can trade first. Come to my Archimond castle for dinner tonight. Leo said with a smile. Akel also said goodbye with great discernment, and greeted his men to go to bulk cargo. Lulu, hurry up, as long as there is some profit, you can sell and buy it all, you don't need to pursue too much. At this time, Akel walked up to a young man in the caravan and said, Why, boss? I think it's just an ordinary small village. You can't make much money by selling too much. The young man said with a puzzled face, looking a little incomprehensible. There are so many words, hurry up and do it. Akel drank lightly, but immediately explained, this young baron is not ordinary, in his eyes, I see ambition, we might as well cater to, earn it's okay to have less. Hearing the words, the young man nodded his head, beckoning the rest of the caravan to sell goods. Congratulations, young master, Uncle Winter and Sasha had already heard the news and came over to congratulate. Uncle Vent, how is the power in the castle now? Leo asked. Captain Carey was in charge of these things before, but this time, Captain Carey went out with him as the castle's leader. The second person, Uncle Venter, is of course responsible for the time being. After you left, 3 militiamen and 6 new recruits were recruited, but now it has almost reached the limit of the current Langzia village. After all, the number of households in Langzia village is still limited. Uncle Went also said in a deep voice. In a short period of time, it is not very realistic to recruit more people without affecting the prosperity of the village, and money is spent too fast these days. Well, it doesn't matter, I have already told Captain Carey to continue recruiting troops. Leo whispered in Uncle Venter's ear, Uncle Venter, there is one more thing I want to ask you, as long as the matter is successful, you don't have to worry about money. Looking at Uncle Vent's eyes, he was a little puzzled, but Leo smiled mysteriously and didn't plan to explain it. After 5 days, Lord Baron, Akali has received his hospitality. I am grateful, but I have been staying in this Langzia village for a long time. I have come here to bid you farewell. At this time, Akali seemed to have a round face. For a while, during this period of time, Leo was dragged by Leo to hold a banquet all day long, and he really ate a lot. Of course, Akel said goodbye several times, but he was also retained by Leo in this way, which made Akel even more puzzled. What exactly does the Baron want to do? Fortunately, today, when Akel said goodbye, Leo uncharacteristically did not retain the other party again, but said mysteriously, Akel, come here, I'll show you a baby. P.S. Ask for a ticket, ask for a recommendation ticket, ask for a comment, ask for an investment. I don't know what to ask for, the author is going to code it. This is. At this time, Akel looked at the small open wooden box in Leo's hand with a bit of fiery enthusiasm. The bright white sand in it made him almost tremble. Akel, calm down your excited heart and trembling hand, don't knock it over, Leo said with a chuckle, and what he has in his hand is naturally the salt that is the secret of the traveler's riches. These days, he made Uncle Vent spend countless efforts. After repeated failures, the semi-finished product finally tinkered with is a bit grey. Compared with Leo in his previous life, this salt is really too bad. Yes, but for this life, it is a rare high-quality product. This is also the reason why Akel stayed for so long. Originally, he thought that it should not be difficult to purify it. It is not easy to meet a caravan, so he just waited until he built it. It was just after repeated failures that he realized the difficulty more and more. It really wasn't that easy. Fortunately, in the early hours of this morning, he finally figured out a suitable method and made about 30 pounds. Sir, who are you? Akel said excitedly, looking at Leo with incomparable expectations. Yes, Akel, I can sell it to you. Leo gently closed the small wooden box, looked at Akel in front of him, with a slight smile in his eyes, but at this price. My lord, Akel is willing to pay your lord 200 dinars per pound of refined salt. Akel thought for a moment and then said. Not enough, Leo squinted his eyes, then stretched out 4 fingers and said, at least this number. Hey! Akel sighed with a sigh of relief, with a tangled look on his face. A pound is similar to a pound, which is a bag and a half of salt in Leo's family in the previous life, but the purchasing power of dinars is not necessary. Undoubtedly, 400 dinars is definitely a large amount. Refined salt is a consumable item, and it will be gone after a while. This price is really terrible. Akel, I think you can understand the value of this refined salt better than others. In the town of Trubrun or the great river city, such refined salt is absolutely priceless. If you don't want to, this baron can buy another one. Find someone else. This is why you caught up with the cheap this time, otherwise this baron could have been handed over to another caravan. Leo said lightly, closed the small wooden box, and looked at Akel with a tangled look on his face. Besides, Akel, my Archimond family has a long history, and there are many other good things. You have made a business this time, and you will have the opportunity in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for giving this opportunity to others. Leo looked at the tangle on Akel's face and said softly again. My lord, I want it. Akel gritted his teeth, raised his head and said, I will ask your lord to take care of me in the future. I want all this batch of refined salt. Very good, Leo clapped lightly, I didn't read you wrong, Akel, I still have 30 pounds of refined salt here, I will sell them all to you, I can make a promise to you, no matter what I do in the future. What baby, there is always a share of your Akel. Hi, thank you, Lord Baron, but... Akel said with an embarrassed expression, 30 pounds of refined salt, 12,000 dinars, I don't have that much money. This. Leo also frowned slightly, and muttered to himself, this Akel seems to have such a high trading point, but he didn't expect it to be so bad. Well then, you take the food, tools and so on in your cargo, except for the handicrafts and luxury goods are all left, and the Baron bought them at the price of Changi City. Thank you, Lord Baron, but maybe this is not enough. The qualified goods in my batch are only worth 3,000 dinars at most. I still have about 7,000 dinars, and there is still a difference in the middle. Akel once again said embarrassedly. Ah, this? Leo was completely speechless. Looking at such a large caravan, it was still a fatherson inheritance. How could he be so poor? Archimond Baron, although there may not be much cash, it is because of buying various things, such as those armors and swords in the treasury, so there is not much money on the book, but this Akel is a businessman. The net worth is all carried with him, and he still can't get 10,000 dinars, and there is no one. Of course, complaints return to complaints, and Leo also understands that, after all, this world is still a world of nobles. If these commoners are doing business with such huge profits, how could they be able to live to this day? Akel, the remaining 2,000 dinars are what you owe this baron on credit. I don't ask you to ask for it now, I just hope that you can reach the town of Trubrunn and the great river city and give me more money. Bring some strong slaves, promote more to attract some free people, and then buy more things that my lord wants, especially the beast crystals. Leo turned around abruptly, and said almost to Akel, with the refined salt at the moment, he can always keep if production goes on, it is better to give it to the other party as much as possible. Ah, this, my lord, this is also. Akel couldn't help but smile bitterly. Their merchants always asked for credit in various ways, and the other party looked reluctant. The young baron in front of him even took the initiative to ask them for credit. Really unique. Akel, are you interested in doing things with me? Leo's next words made Akel a little nervous. Seriously, a small baron asked Akel, who was traveling all over the world, to also agree with him. It's not that I take it seriously, it's just that the nobles are nobles after all. For a while, the atmosphere was a little embarrassing, but Leo chuckled lightly, just kidding, but Akel, I hope you can ship back the things I want as soon as possible, and I won't let you suffer in terms of price. Generous lord, Akel will definitely live up to his expectations. Akel breathed a sigh of relief. Naturally, this old fox would not be easily loyal. He was really afraid of breaking up. This is the Baron of Archimond. He has also seen the strength of the other party's castle, and he has no good fruit to eat. Master, do you value that Akel so much? Sasha on the side said curiously. He felt that his young master seemed to be too concerned about Akel. Of course, Sasha, our Archimond Baron, if we want to develop rapidly, we must have a large number of caravans to drive. Leo sighed, the fragrance of wine is also afraid of deep alleys. Master, are you looking for me? Captain Carey also walked into the castle, bowed respectfully and then asked. Captain Carey, how is the training of the guards now? Bandits have been raging near our Langzia village. Are you sure you can bring someone to clean them up? Leo asked. Ah! Captain Carey, who was also a little surprised at Leo's sudden thought, frowned and replied, Sir, those bandits are more responsible, and they will never plunder Archimond. Family things, their strength is not weak, it is not cost-effective to target them. That doesn't work either, Captain Carey, there can't be bandits looting near Langzia village. Leo waved his hand, I just want to ask if you are sure about them now? If not, step up your training and eliminate them. It's a matter of time and night, if you are sure you can eat them, you might as well train with these people. These robbers and bandits are too affecting the safety of the caravan, which is absolutely intolerable. Well, Captain Carey frowned slightly, thought for a moment, and replied loudly, Sir, I am personally in charge, and I am 80% sure. A well-equipped equipment coupled with the already extraordinary combat power is enough to take over the overall situation. Well, Captain Carey, your mission in the future is to take those trained soldiers out to clear up bandits, robbers. I think Clark is pretty good, and he will be mainly responsible for recruits from now on. Leo said that Clark is the most skilled coach he has seen, and the straight is 23 higher than Captain Carey. Yes, Captain Carey naturally has no opinion. This is a more important task. He has long wanted to be in charge of only training. For a lion-level infantry, it is naturally the best thing to lead soldiers out to fight. In this way, Langzia village is still expanding in an orderly manner, and its area is more than twice as large as before. Of course, many of them are still wasteland. As for the planting area, a large area has been specially designated by Leo. The place where the village is located is quite far away, but it is close to a small river. Today's Langzia village has more than 380 households. As a village, it is already quite inflated. If it weren't for the simple chemical fertilizers specially handed down by Leo and the large amount of food purchased from outside, it would have been long ago. Can't bear it anymore. What do you think our Lord wants to do? It was going to be expanded. Let us live in this kind of building now. At this time, a small grey building was already sitting on the edge of a corner of the village. As the first small building in the village, it naturally attracted many people's onlookers. The 5-story building, with each household of 200 square meters, can be regarded as a place that is not small. Small households feel quite uncomfortable. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. It's just that there are also many young people who are easy to accept changes, and they are also the first batch of people who eat crabs. After moving in, they have a different taste. After all, high-rise buildings are desirable, although there are many changes. But the so-called heating is connected to the building, which is the envy of countless people. After inquiring about the conditions for entering the building, it is to give up their bungalows and grounds. Most of the residents are already ready to move. The so-called bungalows in Langzia village are still quite backward in craftsmanship, leaking air in winter and raining in summer, and they are far from the prosperity of high-rise buildings. A few days later, many people have already submitted their applications to live in high-rise buildings. The wind is cold, and the facilities of high-rise buildings are really attractive. At this time, they are far from realizing what the so-called ground will be in the future. Value, but everything in Langzia village is changing, whether it's a way of life or something else. Well, the development of Langzia village is not bad this year. These people have also moved into the building, and the large area of Langzia village has been vacated. Leo stood on the castle and looked around, but he couldn't stop nodding. Under his single-handed control, Langzia village is also developing vigorously. What is more interesting is that it is naturally a team template: 2 infantrymen in the Lions, 21 elite militiamen in the Lions, and 21 elite militiamen in the Lions. There are 26 militiamen and 17 recruits in the Lion City. With such strength, Leo naturally felt a little smug. But this time, quick, I want to see the Lord. At this time, Captain Carey sounded in a somewhat panicked voice. P.S. Ask for recommendation votes for investment. M pushes the book. The protagonist has worked hard for 30 years, and is finally recognized by the system. Xiangxian, the taste is very strong, the old author's writing is very good, King Gui Tianzun. What happened? Leo looked at it subconsciously, but saw the panic-stricken Captain Carey hurried in. Lord, we have discovered a terrible thing. A group of refugees were slaughtered. According to the survivors, it was the 2 teams passing by. Horses are chasing among them, because the refugees hindered the pursuit team. They were slaughtered at will, and according to the reports of those refugees, there were only a dozen or so people who killed them, and all of them were people in battle armor. It was directly smashed by a shot. Obviously, the pursuers were all masters, so some were uncertain. Leo frowned slightly when he heard the words. He understood what Captain Carey meant. Obviously, the team of people who slaughtered the refugees should be quite terrifying. The cavalry in the armor should obviously have some background. But those people who slaughtered refugees at will, after all, are a scourge in their own territory, even more abhorrent than the bandits and robbers before, after all. For a while, Leo couldn't help but sway. Which direction are they? That's it. Captain Carey bowed and stepped forward, making a gesture on the sand table in the castle hall. This is, follow the direction of Liuxia Valley, not good, and behind it is Liuhung village. Leo's color changed slightly. He hadn't realized it before, but now he noticed the seriousness of the problem. It shouldn't be in a straight line, Captain Carey said with some doubts. Look at the rugged terrain. According to what you said, they are all cavalry. In order to take care of horsepower, it is impossible to walk those areas that are too bumpy. If you go down this road, Leo has become more and more firm. Go and invite Uncle Venter over here. Master, he heard Uncle Went's voice as soon as he finished speaking. At this time Uncle Went's elegant face was also a bit serious. Master, the old servant asks the young master to go and destroy those people. Uncle Went, don't you know them? Leo frowned slightly. Uncle Went's words carried a little mystery, which made him a little awkward. I'm just guessing, Uncle Winter nodded, I'll go with you. Ah! Leo was stunned for a moment, but nodded heavily, and said to Captain Carey, go and count your troops, be sure to bring more elites, and it's okay to have less equipment at home. Following Captain Carey's lead, Leo also changed his clothes. At this time, he walked out of the castle and saw that Uncle Vent had already mounted a snow-white horse. The skeleton was not very thick, but it was very spiritual. Look! Uncle Vent, don't you want to change your clothes and go again? Leo said with some puzzlement, looking at Uncle Vent, who was still dressed as he was, and didn't change into his battle uniform. No, Uncle Went shook his head slightly, general armor is already awkward to wear, and it's hard to fit. What about your own armor, Uncle Vent? Leo also said in surprise, could it be so many years? My body, Uncle Winter smiled bitterly, that body is too ostentatious. It's best not to have any news about him in the current Archimonde Baron. Tisk tisk tisk. Leo blinked, Uncle Vent in front of him seemed to be very mysterious. Look, my lord, said Captain Carey, pointing to several corpses on the ground. This is exactly the same as those refugees before, it's all like this. Leo got off his horse to check, turned over a corpse, and looked at the wound on it. He could not help but let out a cold breath, but he was directly penetrated. From this wound, we can see the amazing speed and strength of the murderer. It was really just a casual slaughter, and it looked like he didn't care at all. From the horseshoe prints around it, it could be seen that even so many refugees did not cause any obstacles. This. Uncle Went's expression darkened slightly, he took a deep breath and said, Master, they should go down this road, let's hurry up. Leo had no objection, and he was also extremely frightened. He had already vaguely seen the terrifying strength of the refugees' bodies. If it wasn't for Uncle Vent, he would have hesitated. The 15 elite militiamen, 20 fierce lion militiamen and an infantryman like Captain Carey that I brought with me did not seem to be enough for the other side to clean up. Uncle Went, do you know their origins? Zhang Sheng still couldn't help but ask when he reached the road. That's right, Uncle Went's expression was extremely cold at this time, and he forced a smile at Zhang Sheng, as I expected, those should be the small team of J2, but luckily there are not many people. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for the Archimonde Baron. J2? Are those legendary J2 cavalry? Leo was also slightly stunned when he heard the words. He learned the name from some ancient books. Fierce warriors of the steppe. They are one of the most dangerous forces in Pender, with excellent weapons and thick armor, and their war horses are faster and more bloody, a charge is almost hopeless, and perhaps their discipline is the most loose in all Pender power, but there is no doubt about their combat power, especially their lances. It is said that in the chaotic era, they even killed demons Oneo Nun. Every J2 lance is a great killer. Yes, it's J2, Uncle Went said, his face was very solemn, but he didn't put too much pressure on Leo, but it should be just a few lowest level J2 wandering riders, it should be 5th order. Cultivation is nothing to be afraid of. Hiss. Hearing this, Captain Carey, who was sitting on the war horse, almost didn't sit still. Although he was a lion infantry, he was not completely ignorant of horseback riding. Immediately stunned. It's just the lowest level of Jeta's wandering rider, so there's nothing to be afraid of. As an infantry soldier of the Lion Realm, he was only at the 4th rank now. If he really wanted to be Oneo Nun, he might have been directly scrapped by the opponent's lance charge. Wen Ti's remarks really shocked countless people. Even Leo at this time was almost caught by lightning. This Uncle Wen's remarks were too grand. Seeing the faint urging on his face, Leo could only choose to believe it. After all, he didn't see that Uncle Wen's strength was likely to be above the 5th rank. But even ordinary 5th order warriors would never dare to despise them in the face of Jetu, let alone a team of Jetu cavalry. Leo knew that, regardless of their large number of troops, they really had to be right. On that team of Jetu cavalry, the other party charged, and he and others would have suffered heavy casualties. And these elite militiamen of the fierce Lion Realm, unless it is a coincidence, it may even be difficult to cut the opponent's warhorse. There is Liuhung village over there, there seems to be a shout. Uncle Wen said at this time, and everyone hurriedly took a shortcut, climbed to a top of the mountain, and overlooked it, but their expressions changed drastically. As far as he could see, he found that Liuhung village was originally a tall fence, and many of them had been turned into scattered rubble. There are more than a dozen strong men with tall horses outside. All the horses under the crotch are thick bones, majestic and bloody. The knights wear armor, and the huge lances in their hands are simple and terrifying. The horses under the crotch are completely surrounded by countless walls. Crash easily. At this time, the militia team of Liuhung village was already wearing leather-encrusted chain mail, relying on the few fences to fight. However, the military sword in his hand did not seem to pose much threat to the group of Jetu riders. Perhaps only the spear resting on the wall would make the group of Jetu riders pay a little attention. After all, the effect of force is mutual, and the horse's charge is terrifying. If it is a spear, the high relative speed will also cause the warhorse to suffer a lot of damage, but the rider on the warhorse is so big. The lance easily pierced through the militia who were trying to resist, and some even penetrated the militia and went straight through the stone wall behind. Hiss! As soon as Leo saw this scene, he also took a cold breath. When he really saw the strength of these Jetu wandering riders, it still made him shudder. The militia team of more than 20 people, even if they were relying on the wall, was still vulnerable. Looking back, he suddenly realized the problem. There were already 2 or 3 stray riders wailing on the ground. Looking carefully, among the numerous militia troops, there is a strong figure, piercing cold arrows from time to time, and his movements are erratic, but he has become the only murderer of the fallen Jetu rider. As for those with a large number of people, the militiamen really just used their lives to restrain the riders slightly. That's it. Leo couldn't help frowning slightly, his scalp was numb, and he could also see that the Jetu rider's Zagia was very thick and definitely not something that an ordinary arrow could break. Hit, is the life of a Jetu wandering rider came to an end. Master. Captain Carey here wants to ask for instructions. After all, Liuhung village was also won before. It's not a direct line. The strength of the riders is obviously scary, and you still need to ask for instructions on how to do it. Prepare to fight, Leo took a deep breath. After all, those Jetu riders were the scourge of this land, and he really didn't want to see a prosperous village like Liuhung village being slaughtered like this. Just as soon as he finished speaking, he heard Uncle Went say calmly, "I'll come." Then, Uncle Went was seen rushing down, and the robes in that seat were not armor, which made people look quite conspicuous. Weird. Just immediately, I saw that Uncle Went had already drawn a bow and arrow on the horseback. This is nothing, there are already stirrups in Pender. Uncle Went is very strong, and it is normal to ride and shoot. Leo wasn't surprised. Just the next moment, I saw the broad half-moon-shaped silver compound bow in Uncle Went's hand suddenly tremble slightly, and the bright silver arrow flashed a faint cold light. The bows and arrows in Uncle Went's hands were almost continuous, and when they went out together, Leo didn't regain his senses when he saw that the other arrow had pierced through with astonishing vigor. Boom! This sharp arrow hit a Jeta wandering rider without any suspense, but it is unbelievable that the Najata wandering rider was shot straight by this slender arrow, and the terrifying kinetic energy was accompanied by the Jeta rider flew for miles. This! Leo couldn't help smacking his tongue, and he was shocked. Although he knew that Uncle Went's strength was scary, it was too terrifying. Those fifth-order Jeta wandering riders seemed to be cut wheat. Uncle Went, where is the bow and arrow in that hand? It is not an exaggeration to say that it is AK. The Jeta riders looked at the direction where the arrows were flying, and also noticed the figure running down the middle of the mountain. At this time, the 16 Jeta riders had already fallen 5 in an instant. Out of the 3 people killed by the figures in the Liuheng village before going up, only 8 remained. This is so, but the remaining Jeta riders have no intention of retreating. Looking at Uncle Went's direction, they shouted again, Eula, one by one, raised their huge lances, and once again planned the horse galloped and charged towards Uncle Went with boundless murderous aura. There were only 8 people left, and there was a mighty force rushing towards them. Suddenly, like an earthquake, the iron hooves wanted to break through all obstacles, and the spears pierced through everything. Prepare to take over, Leo's mind was also raised. Although Uncle Went looked fierce, he had no armor after all, and there seemed to be only such a silver compound bow in his hand. Yet! But the next moment, Uncle Went's warhorse also ran. This time, Leo was shocked. Uncle Went's warhorse didn't look very big, but the speed was really faster than lightning. Those Jeta cavalrymen charged with all their strength, but they were pulled away. Shhhhhhh. The mournful sound of arrows breaking through the air kept sounding, and in the blink of an eye, the crowd of wandering riders had already fallen one after another. Uncle Went, keep one, Leo shouted in ecstasy at the same time. Uncle Went, who had put the last arrow on the bowstring, also put down the arrow instead. Ji seemed to understand that Leo wanted to rely on the only Jeta wandering rider to test the strength of his subordinates. Captain Kaye also shouted, everyone, prepare the spears, the 3 of you, come behind here, the 6 of you, prepare the shields. The Najata rider seems to be fearless, even if he kills him all the way, holding his lance, he has the spirit of thousands of people, he has already seen this crowd of miscellaneous soldiers, but he didn't pay much attention to it. What he really feared was the horse archer whose bow and arrows were extremely terrifying. Jola! Seeing those humans erecting their spears, Jeta rider Hell also sneered a bit at the corners of his mouth, slightly urging the warhorse, and in an instant, the warhorse seemed to shoot out a more terrifying light. The power actually leaps up. And he also picked up his lance, shhh, the lance pierced the shield, accompanied by the sound of clattering, but the warhorse fell to the ground, kicked and injured several people, and stepped on the shield on the ground. This! Captain Carey was also stunned when he saw this scene, and immediately shouted angrily, rushed over, the cavalry's momentum was curbed, without such a terrifying speed, the threat was greatly reduced, the refined handguard sword in his hand flickering with a cold light, he stabbed straight ahead. Ignorant human being, Hull saw this scene, and there was a bit of ridicule on the corner of his mouth. He took out a saber in his left hand, a light knife flower, broke the menacing sword, and turned his hand to lift it. Seeing this scene, Captain Carey also felt his scalp go numb, and hurriedly waved his refined kite-shaped shield on top. Bang! A burst of tremendous force made him take a few steps back, and Captain Carey couldn't help but be shocked. With this knife, the opponent clearly didn't use such a terrifying force, but it made him almost unable to support it. Shhhhhh. The 2 sharp arrows came almost instantaneously, and in the next instant, accompanied by an astonishing shout from Hull, 2 sharp arrows had already passed through his legs, and for a while, the pain was severe. It came, and he almost lost his strength. Let's go together! Captain Carey shouted when he saw this scene, and many militiamen rushed up. Of course, the kite-shaped shield fully protected him. Bang 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 bang. A few more voices came, and several militiamen all flew to the ground, spitting blood, and even the kite-shaped shield had cracks. This. Leo's color changed slightly when he saw this scene. He didn't expect that the Jeta wandering rider was seriously injured, but he was still so fierce. Humph! The huge ship was waving out, and the war horse galloped towards the Najata wandering rider. Chop away! Boom! Leo himself was shaken violently, and great strength returned, and the Nagata wandering rider hull also spit out a mouthful of blood, appearing to be a lot sluggish. This Jeta rider is really unusual. Leo was also shocked in his heart. Although he was still at the 3rd rank, the power he wielded with a single blow, even a 4th rank warrior, was no match for him, not to mention that the Najata wandering rider had already lost 100% of his combat power. 50%. But at this time, the Jeta rider hell seemed to have almost no strength to fight back. Under the many militiamen desperately fighting with their shields, and countless spears stabbing out of them, there were several more wounds on his body, and finally was by Captain Carey. That's right, Uncle Went also rode a horse to this place, nodded and said, but at this time, the attitude of everyone looking at Uncle Went was very different. This Jeta wandering rider was seriously injured, and everyone still he tried his best to do nothing, but this Went just killed so many wandering riders by himself. The opponent's strength is so terrifying that it is almost untouchable. This Jeta tribe, the power on the horse's back is extremely frightening. If you really rush to the front, even a demon will die if you charge with a spear, but if you can distance yourself from riding and shooting, reading www.yuyugonshu.com is not. It's so hard to deal with. Uncle Went said calmly, but everyone was speechless for a while. Just with the opponent's armor and blood and bones, they may not be able to break the defense when shooting arrows. At this time, everyone came to Liuhung village. The village chief hurriedly brought a group of people to meet them. They witnessed this battle. Those demon-like riders easily crushed their militia team, but they were defeated by the Lord Hands. At this time, Leo's prestige has greatly increased, and it is more effective than the so-called hooligan Liwei before. Of course, the difficulty is also too great. Lord, please show mercy and save this girl. If it weren't for her, we would have been slaughtered by those riders long ago. At this time, several men shouted. Liao heard the words and looked at the unconscious woman lying on the ground. A green robe was wrapped in silver armor. There were also several scars on her body. The half-face still couldn't stop the stunned look, but at this time he fell into a drowsiness, which made people feel a little pity. Is this the person in the militia just now? The character who killed 3 Jeta wandering riders with bows and arrows? Could it be a woman? While Leo was amazed, his eyes became a little colder. These villagers of Liuhung village are really stupid. Do you really think this is their helper? At this time, Leo combined with the information he had obtained before, and he was almost 80% sure that those Jeta wandering riders were clearly attracted to this girl. P.S. Good news. The signing station is short this afternoon, you can rest assured to invest and earn a little bit. The author also has the motivation in an instant, and tomorrow will start twice a day. In addition, M asks for a recommendation ticket. Hey! Uncle Went frowned slightly when he saw the girl in front of him, and shook his head very slightly. Lord, please show mercy and save me. Many villagers shouted. Humph! Leo was also a little unhappy in his heart. If it wasn't for this girl, Liuhung village wouldn't have been damaged so badly. These villagers of Liuhung village actually thought that the other party was a good person. Okay, this Baron will naturally save him, Leo said, although he was unhappy in every possible way, he was also curious. This girl can attract so many Jeta wandering riders to pursue, I'm afraid she is also an extraordinary generation. The wall, able to deal with 1 or 2, This skill is obviously not without origin. As for you, Leo cleared his throat again, you have also seen the strength of those riders. According to this Baron's news, there are more than one team nearby, and the Baron will return to Archimond Castle soon. Blue Summer Village, so you'd better make adequate preparations. Ah, my lord. After hearing this, the villagers who were still worried about the girl all changed their colors and no longer cared about the so-called girl's safety. They had already seen the strength of those wandering riders. At this time, the militia in the village, the team was already seriously damaged. If it wasn't for the girl's help, the entire village would have been wiped out. If Leo hadn't arrived in time, in a few hours, they would have all become corpses. Hearing what Leo said at this time, there might be several teams nearby, and they were completely panicked. Also ask the Lord to help. Lord, Lord, you can't. Many villagers shouted, their faces full of panic. Okay, Leo Kyun Danshan did not shout out, but it echoed in everyone's ears, my army will not be stationed here forever, but this Baron is kind and willing to help you all. Bundle. If you are willing to relocate, in Langzia village, this Baron will give you a house that is spacious and bright, and you don't have to worry about the problem of vitality. I will find a job for you. As long as you are willing to work hard, you will definitely live better than now. Well, of course, this Baron will not force anyone who is willing to be in this floating red village. As soon as Leo finished speaking, the many villagers were already bustling and discussing, especially seeing Leo's uneasy expression, their voices became louder and louder. Lord Baron, all of us in Liuhung village are very grateful for your kindness, but this matter is too big. The old village chief of Liuhung village stepped forward and smiled bitterly, let's discuss it. Well, Leo nodded lightly, but didn't say anything more. He believed that these villagers were just instinctive vigilance. My people will come over in the afternoon to help you relocate, so think about it for yourself. Having said that, Leo has already lightly pulled the reins and returned to Langzia village with a large number of militiamen. Looking at the long queue and the mess in the place, many villagers are more and more unscrupulous in their discussions. What should we do now? This is our homeland. Do you really want to listen to that nobleman and go to Langzia village? It's not like I haven't been to Langzia village. It's such a big place, so what's so good about it? Many villagers were obviously extremely reluctant. After all, leaving home doesn't sound like a good thing. I heard that Langzia village has changed a lot in the past few months. It's almost unbelievable. It's not bad to go there. Such a scary rider, who can stop it again? Leo's words are still quite yearning. Anyway, I'm going, it's too scary. There were already quite a few people in the militia team who said, such a mere dozen people almost beat a village of theirs without the ability to fight back. Of fear. You are a militia team. If you also went to Langzia village, then. But obviously some villagers said with great dissatisfaction. It was because of security issues that they had some urge to go to Langzia village. At this time, the militia teams, the behavior has almost made them have no other choice. Okay. The prestige of the village chief over there is obviously not very high, and he said repeatedly, but it seems that everyone's discussion can't be calmed down. Inside Archimond Castle, the pungent herbal smell wafts. Master, I'm afraid this girl will be easy and troublesome, Uncle Went frowned at this time. When Leo heard this, he also frowned slightly. This girl seemed too mysterious, and Leo vaguely didn't know why. He always felt that Uncle Went seemed to be very interested in this girl. An extremely ethereal voice sounded here, and the attention of several people was attracted in an instant, but the girl in green had gradually woken up. Are you awake? Leo looked around, but saw the girl wrinkle her nose slightly and looked curiously. Dear Baron, I'm Freya from the Dawson Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your help. The girl reluctantly got up, but she did a standard noble etiquette, our caravan was robbed by the Jatu on the grassland. If I hadn't met you, Lord Baron, I'm afraid that Freya would have. Dawson Chamber of Commerce? At this time, Leo frowned slightly. He had naturally heard of this huge Chamber of Commerce. The founder of the Chamber of Commerce, right, was once the subordinate of the Lion King. During the Battle of Sarion, he was the fashionable and the Lion King Alfred. Germany provided a lot of material assistance. And Alfred, who sat on the silver throne, also reciprocated, despite the opposition of a group of powerful officials, and granted the title of Earl of Right. After that, the Dawson Chamber of Commerce also became more and more prosperous, almost monopolizing many areas of the Lion Kingdom, and the wealth earned was unimaginable. You said you were from the Dawson Chamber of Commerce. Uncle Vent's mouth was slightly mocking. Humph, it's just a matter of words. I don't understand what you're talking about. The girl frowned and took out a necklace that was as moist as water on her neck. The sparkling waves made it look extraordinary. There were 3 separate arrows on it. It is the 3 arrows concentric logo of the Dawson Chamber of Commerce. Oh? Then you might as well take off your wrap and deceive my young master, Uncle Winter continued with a cold snort. This. Freya's expression changed slightly. Leo frowned and patted his palm a few times. Captain Carey filed in with more than a dozen elite militiamen, and the long sword was drawn and aimed at Freya. Yay! The next moment, Freya raised her hands slightly, which made Captain Carey and others even more nervous. After all, they had also seen the fighting strength of this girl. They used bows and arrows to hunt down 3 statues before relying on the fence. Jeta Rider, and they, so many people, even a seriously injured Jeta Rider can't do anything. Really, if the opponent's bow and arrow are in hand, it will definitely be a big trouble. Maybe the opponent is not as fierce as the Jeta Rider, but the attack is even more fierce. However, it was clear that Freya had no intention of injuring people. Instead, she untied the towel with graceful movements, and her slightly crystal-like ink hair fell down, concealing her beautiful face, fresh and not kitsch. Like an angel exiled from the world, a combination of pure and beautiful. Many people saw it at this moment, but at this time, Leo noticed something. This Freya's ears, slender and slightly sharp, half-elf. No wonder such a beautiful face turns out to be of half-elf blood. My Dawson Chamber of Commerce, the ancestors have the blood of elves, and there are not a few half-elves. This is also a well-known thing at the top of the kingdom. Freya smiled sweetly, as if the air here was a little fresher. 3 arrows concentric, among them there are an arrow means the support of the Noldor. Of course, the deep smile of Freya's smile at this time is also a bit curious. The chi of this ancient castle is extremely strange, which makes him quite uncomfortable, and these people are also very strange. The big boy is so difficult to fool. It stands to reason that her natural beauty, how can ordinary noble teenagers be so difficult to deal with? And that middle-aged man made her feel a little unfathomable. Although she was in a coma, but the other party and others were able to save her, it was obviously the Jeta Riders who had packed up that team. Such a terrifying record was probably directly related to the middle-aged man in front of her. After all, the dozen or so militiamen who aimed at her with military swords really didn't have much sense of existence in her eyes. Uncle Vint. Leo didn't believe what Freya said. The other party was very strange from the beginning, revealing extreme mystery. At this time, it seemed that only Uncle Vint could make the other party jealous. Interesting, Uncle Winter also looked at Freya in awe. Are you from the Dill family or the Alderayan family? What? Hearing what Uncle Went said, Leo felt a little confused, but Freya's expression changed drastically. You, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Tisk tisk, your cultivation base is only 5th order, but you can disguise as a half-elf, and only the blood of the 2 major families can do this. Uncle Went's words were somewhat lengthy. Also the fracture in your left leg must have been caused by an ebony long-handled hammer, right? I've never heard of any disputes between the Dawson Chamber of Commerce and the Knights of the Ebony Gauntlets. The ebony gauntlets and the kingdom have to maintain their hard-won efforts. Stable, it is impossible to pursue and kill the people of the Dawson Chamber of Commerce so recklessly. Everything is possible. When I die, everyone will know what happened, Freya said again. Next time you pretend to be a half-elf, you'd better hide your boots, Uncle Winter said with a slightly sarcastic smile. Half-elf is at your level, but it is impossible to activate the function of enchanted boots. Who are you? After all, Freya couldn't help but burst into flames, and Leo was shocked. He barely reacted, but he saw the other party fall back again. At the same time, Deo green vines climbed up to each other, and at this moment, they were completely bound. You, are you? Freya's face changed dramatically, looking at the vines wrapping around her side. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com had sealed all her blood vessels at this moment. She already had it in her heart an extremely shocking guess. Master, let her calm down here first, maybe she will wake up overnight, Uncle Went said, bowing to Leo. Leo nodded hurriedly, and immediately realized that Carrie and the others were still there, and he also raised his face slightly and coughed lightly. Captain Carrie, people from Liuhung village will be here this afternoon. To relocate, you bring people to pick them up, and then arrange where they live. Let's publicize some of our conscription treatment with them, and let them integrate into Langzia village in the shortest possible time. Yes, Lord Baron. Captain Carey responded and greeted his subordinates to leave, and Uncle Vent also followed. At this time, Li Luo just found out that this Freya seemed to be in the same place. Not quite right, but people are gone. Forget it, just use your own strength. Leo mentioned the other party earlier, but the vines were naturally attached to the body. The extremely soft touch made Leo's heart sway a little unconsciously, but he took a deep breath. Taking a breath, he remained calm. You. Seeing this scene, Freya became more and more frightened and struggled desperately. You, let go. But the vine was so strong that she was almost struggling with despair, watching Leo lift himself to the side. Room to go. No way. Those terrible rumors sounded, and Freya became more and more frightened. The door opened, and Freya almost gave up her struggle. Clang. Falling parabolically, Freya landed on the ground and rolled a few times before she heard Leo's voice, "Give you a night to think about it." Immediately, there was a heavy sound of closing the door. This